The crimson sand of Arena 7 stretched endlessly under twin suns that cast everything in blood-colored shadows. Cadet Maya Chen stood at the center of the killing field, her standard-issue combat boots shifting slightly as she tested her footing. The metal collar around her neck felt heavier than its actual weight, broadcasting her vital signs to thousands of alien spectators packed into the tiered seating above. Look at the little meat bag, his commander Krex'thor, his serpentine body coiled around the observation platform's railing. His 4 yellow eyes gleamed with anticipation as he watched the human below. Such a pathetic species. No natural weapons, no armored skin, no venom sacs. How did they ever survive their own world? General Krex'thor rumbled his agreement, his massive bulk casting a shadow over the lesser officers. The battalion's rocky hide rippled with amusement. 23 years we have been testing their kind. 23 years of disappointment. This one looks even weaker than the others. Maya could hear their chittering and growling through the arena's acoustics. Every word reached her ears with crystal clarity, just as they intended. The psychological warfare was as much part of the game as the physical combat. She rolled her shoulders, working out the tension, and allowed herself a small smile. "Oh, you beautiful bastards have no idea what you've just signed up for," she whispered to herself, her voice carrying just enough edge to make the nearby monitoring drones lean closer. The arena floor began to vibrate with deep, rhythmic pounding. Each impact sent tremors through the sand, causing small avalanches from the higher dunes. The crowd's excited chittering grew to a deafening roar as massive blast doors at the far end of the arena began to grind open. Steam billowed out from the darkness beyond, carrying with it the stench of sulfur and something far worse. Something that spoke of death and decay and endless hunger. Maya's nostrils flared as she caught the scent, her body automatically shifting into a combat stance her instructors back on Earth would have recognized. "Ladies and gentlemen of the Galactic Council," boomed the announcer, his voice echoing through translation devices in a dozen languages, presenting the pride of Sector 9's Beast Pits, undefeated in 47 consecutive battles. The Bone Crusher of Zirian Prime, the terror that walks on 6 legs, the mighty Krex'thor. The creature that emerged from the steam made Maya's breath catch in her throat, not from fear, but from sheer professional appreciation. The Krex'thor stood 12 feet at the shoulder, its obsidian carapace gleaming like polished armor. 6 legs, each ending in razor-sharp talons, carried its bulk with surprising grace. Its head was a nightmare fusion of insect and reptile, dominated by mandibles that could probably bite a hover tank in half. "Now that," Maya said, loud enough for monitoring equipment to pick up, "is one ugly son of a bitch." The crowd erupted in laughter and jeers. The humans' apparent bravado in the face of certain death was always entertaining. They had no idea that Maya Chen had spent her childhood on the mining colonies of Europa, where creatures twice as dangerous as this overgrown bug were considered minor pest problems. The Krex'thor's head swiveled toward her, compound eyes reflecting the arena lights like a disco ball from hell. It opened its mandibles and released a sound that was part roar, part screech, and entirely designed to freeze prey in terror. Acidic saliva dripped from its maw, hissing where it hit the sand. Maya yawned. "Seriously?" she called out to the observation deck. "This is your champion? My little sister's pet hamster put up more of a fight, and that thing was already dead." Commander Krex'thor's scales bristled with indignation. "Arrogant creature, you will sing a different tune when the Krex'thor begins to feed on your entrails." "I doubt it," Maya replied, beginning to circle slowly around the arena's perimeter. "I've got terrible pitch. My choir teacher back home said I sounded like a dying walrus. Speaking of which, is that your mating call I heard earlier, Commander, or do you always sound like you're gargling gravel?" The alien's disrage was audible even over the crowd noise. Several of his subordinates had to restrain him from launching himself into the arena. The Krex'thor, apparently tired of being ignored, charged. 12 feet of armor death moved with shocking speed across the sand, its 6 legs propelling it forward like a biological battering ram. The crowd held its collective breath, waiting for the inevitable splash of red that would mark another human's demise. Maya waited until the beast was 3 steps away, then moved. What happened next would be debated in xenobiology classes for decades to come. The human didn't dodge to the left or right as expected. Instead, she dropped into a slide that would have made any baseball coach weep with joy, passing directly under the creature's belly while it was still airborne from its leap. As she slid, something glinted in her hand, a piece of metal that had definitely not been there during the pre-combat inspection. The Krex'thor landed hard, its momentum carrying it several more meters before it could stop and turn. When it did, green ichor was already beginning to pool beneath it. A thin line of hemolymph traced its path across the sand. "What?" General Korthax leaned forward, his massive hands gripping the railing hard enough to leave dents. "What did she do?" Maya stood up, casually brushing sand from her uniform. In her right hand, she held what looked like a sharpened piece of the arena's own construction material. A simple strip of metal, honed to a razor's edge. "Basic field improvisation, you overgrown rock pile," she called up cheerfully. "While you were all busy gloating and making your speeches, I was paying attention to what really mattered, like the fact that your arena support struts are made of titanium alloy that, when properly shaped, can cut through just about anything organic." The Krex'thor turned toward her again, but its movements were already becoming sluggish. The cut she'd made had severed several major circulatory vessels. It wasn't immediately fatal, but it was definitely going to slow the beast down. "You see," Maya continued, beginning to circle again, "you made the same mistake every bully makes. You assumed that size and strength were all that mattered. But humans didn't climb to the top of our food chain by being the biggest predators." The creature lunged again, but this time its attack was clumsy, weakened by blood loss. Maya sidestepped easily and delivered another precise cut, this one across the tendons of its rear left leg. We got there by being the smartest. The Krex'thor stumbled, its injured leg unable to support its weight properly. It tried to compensate, but Maya was already moving again, her makeshift blade finding another target. We got there by being the most adaptable. Another cut, this one across the creature's flank, opening up its secondary respiratory system. The beast's breathing became labored, each breath a visible struggle. "And most importantly," Maya said, dancing away from a wild swipe of claws, "we got there by being absolutely, completely, and utterly ruthless when we needed to be." The final strike was almost anticlimactic. As the Krex'thor collapsed from blood loss and oxygen deprivation, Maya simply stepped forward and drove her improvised weapon into the small gap, with a creature's head connected to its neck. The blade found the nerve cluster on the first try. The mighty Krex'thor, undefeated champion of 47 battles, died with barely a whimper. Silence fell over the arena like a heavy blanket. Not a single sound emerged from the thousands of spectators as they tried to process what they had just witnessed. The human hadn't just defeated their champion. She had made it look easy. Maya walked over to the creature's head and patted it almost affectionately. "Good boy. You fought well for a giant cockroach." Then she looked up at the observation deck, where the alien commander sat frozen in shock. "So," she called out, her voice carrying clearly in the stunned quiet, "anybody else want to play? Because I'm just getting warmed up, and honestly, this was barely enough exercise to work up a decent sweat." Commander Krex'thor was the first to find his voice. "Impossible. The weapon. How did you create such a weapon?" Maya held up the bloodied piece of metal. "This old thing? I broke it off one of your poorly welded support brackets about 2 minutes after you threw me in here. Took me another 30 seconds to sharpen it on the rough spots in your arena floor. The rest of the time, I was just waiting for your pet to finish its dramatic entrance." She tossed the makeshift blade aside and spread her arms wide. "But hey, don't feel bad. Your beast put up more of a fight than most of the stuff I had to deal with growing up. There was this one time on Titan when an ice borer got into our habitat dome. Now that was a real challenge. This guy? This was just Tuesday." General Korthax slowly rose from his seat, his rocky features twisted with something that might have been respect or might have been terror. "What are you?" Maya's grin was sharp enough to cut glass. "Me? I'm just a 19-year-old cadet from a little backwater planet called Earth. And if this is the best the galaxy has to offer, well," she shrugged eloquently, Let's just say you boys might want to start learning some human customs, starting with how we treat our prisoners of war. The crowd finally found its voice again, but the sound that emerged wasn't the bloodthirsty cheering they had expected. It was something altogether different, something that sounded suspiciously like fear. And in the observation deck, as alien commanders began to whisper frantically among themselves, a new understanding began to dawn. The humans weren't just another species to be conquered and enslaved. They were something far more dangerous. They were survivors. And they were very, very angry. The emergency council session convened 37 minutes after Krex'thor's death. The circular chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 different species took their designated positions. The holographic displays still showed footage of the arena, frozen on the moment when Cadet Maya Chen had delivered her killing blow. "This changes everything," whispered Ambassador Zenthera, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's lights into nervous patterns. The humans were supposed to be a minor species, weak, easily controlled. Commander Krex'thor slithered into his position, his earlier confidence replaced by something approaching panic. The weapon materialization was impossible according to our scans. No hidden technology, no concealed armaments. She created a blade from our own infrastructure. "Created is too generous a term," rumbled General Korthax. "She improvised, in seconds, while under psychological pressure, while facing a creature that has killed trained warriors from 6 different worlds." Fleet Admiral Krex'thor, her tentacles writhing with agitation, activated the central display. Statistics flowed across the screen in harsh red text. "I have been reviewing the data from all previous human encounters. We may have made a catastrophic error in our assessment." The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of environmental systems. "Show us," demanded High Chancellor Mordek, his insectoid features clicking with impatience. The display shifted, showing a timeline of human encounters spanning the last 2 decades. Initial contact suggested a species of moderate intelligence, but limited physical capabilities. No natural weapons. Relatively fragile biology. Shortened lifespans compared to most galactic races. "Get to the point," hissed Krex'thor. "The point," Krex'thor's voice carried a chill that made several counselors shift uncomfortably, "is that we have been testing the wrong specimens." The display changed again, showing a breakdown of captured humans by profession and background. Farmers, merchants, colonists, scientists, artists. We have been deliberately selecting non-combatants for our arena trials, because those were the easiest to capture, protested Ambassador Zenthera. "The logical choice for determining species capabilities. Was it?" The Fleet Admiral's tentacles stopped their writhing, a sign those who knew her recognized as extreme danger. "Look at the data again. Every human we have encountered, regardless of profession, has demonstrated remarkable adaptability under stress. Even their non-combatants have required significant resources to subdue." She manipulated the display, highlighting specific incidents. The merchant who fashioned explosives from cleaning supplies. The farmer who turned her agricultural equipment into weapons. The artist who used his own blood to short-circuit a security system. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. "This cadet represents something we have not encountered before," Krex'thor continued. "A human specifically trained for combat. And if our intelligence is correct, she is not even fully trained. She is still learning." Meanwhile, 3 levels below in Detention Cell 7, Maya Chen was conducting her own analysis. The cell was a standard 10 by 10 cube, designed to hold prisoners until transport to the labor colonies. What the designers hadn't counted on was a human with time to think and nothing to lose. Maya sat cross-legged on the narrow cot, her back against the wall, eyes closed. To casual observation, she appeared to be resting. In reality, she was mapping every sound, every vibration, every shift in air pressure that reached her cell. The ventilation system ran on a 37-minute cycle. Guard patrols passed every 42 minutes, but individual guards varied their timing by up to 6 minutes in either direction. The cell doors operated on a dual-key system, requiring 2 separate biometric scans. Most importantly, The walls were constructed with the same titanium alloy she had used to create her arena weapon. "Knock, knock," she called out cheerfully when the next guard patrol approached. The Zolonian guard stopped outside her cell, his scales shifting to a cautious orange coloration. Prisoner remained secured. He reported into his comm device. "Hey there, friend," Maya said, rising from the cot with casual grace. "I don't suppose you folks have figured out what you're going to do with me yet?" The guard's universal translator processed her words, but he remained silent. Standard protocol for dangerous prisoners. "Because I've got to tell you, this whole situation is getting pretty entertaining from my perspective." Maya moved closer to the force field barrier, careful to stay just outside its activation range. "You know what the funny part is?" The guard scale shifted to deep red, a warning coloration. "The funny part is that you all still think this was about the beast." Maya's smile was sharp as broken glass. Poor little Krex'thor was never the real threat. He was just the opening act. She gestured broadly, encompassing the entire detention level. "See, while you were all focused on whether I could kill your pet bug, none of you bothered to ask the more important question." The guard took an involuntary step backward. "The question you should have asked," Maya continued, her voice dropping to a conversational whisper that somehow seemed more threatening than shouting, "was what happens next." Above them, alarms began to sound throughout the station. "What happens next?" Maya said, settling back onto her cot as emergency lighting flooded the corridors, "is that you learn why humans are really dangerous. It's not because we're the strongest or the fastest or the toughest." The sound of distant explosions echoed through the station's superstructure. "It's because we're never alone." The first indication that something had gone catastrophically wrong came when the defense perimeter reported multiple contacts approaching at impossible speeds. Ships that shouldn't exist were decelerating from faster-than-light travel at distances that should have torn them apart. "Status report," barked Admiral Quindar as she rushed onto command deck. 17 vessels, various configurations," reported the sensor operator, his voice tight with disbelief. "They're using technology we don't recognize. Stealth capabilities that made them invisible until they were practically on top of us. Human ships? Unknown design philosophy, but the energy signatures match nothing in our databases." Through the command deck's main viewer, the approaching fleet became visible. The ships were sleek and predatory, their hulls seeming to drink in the light rather than reflect it. They moved with a fluid coordination that spoke of either advanced AI or crews trained to think as one unit. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. On screen, the face that appeared was unmistakably human, but everything else about the figure was wrong according to their intelligence files. This wasn't the soft features of a colonist or the pale skin of a space-born merchant. This was a warrior, scarred and weathered, with eyes that had seen too much death and found it familiar. "This is Colonel Maya Chen of the Terran Defense Corps," the human said, her voice carrying across space with crystalline clarity. "You are holding my daughter." Admiral Quindar stepped forward, her tentacles unconsciously arranging themselves in a defensive posture. "This is Admiral Quindar of the Galactic Enforcement Division. Your daughter was captured in violation of the Neutral Zone Treaty. She is now property of the Galactic Council, pending trial for crimes against interstellar law." The human's smile was worse than her daughter's had been. Where Maya's expression had held amusement and anticipation, Maya Chen's face showed only cold, professional calculation. "Admiral, you seem to be under several misapprehensions. Allow me to correct them." The display behind her shifted, showing tactical readouts that made the alien command crew exchange nervous glances. "First, my daughter wasn't captured. She volunteered for this assignment. Second, there is no neutral zone treaty between Earth and the Galactic Council because we have never acknowledged your authority. Third, Maya isn't on trial." Maya Chen leaned forward slightly, and suddenly her image seemed to fill the entire screen. "You are." The attack, when it came, wasn't the brutal frontal assault the aliens had expected. Human tactics proved to be far more sophisticated than their intelligence had suggested. Precision strikes disabled key systems while leaving life support intact. Electronic warfare packages turned the station's own defensive systems against each other. Boarding parties materialized in locations that should have been impossible to reach. Maya heard the sounds of battle growing closer and grinned. The guard outside her cell had long since fled, following evacuation protocols that assumed the detention level would be sealed and defended. They hadn't counted on humans who could phase through solid matter using technology that bent physics in uncomfortable directions. Maya Chen, the voice came from just outside her cell, speaking perfect English. "That depends," she replied, not moving from her relaxed position on the cot. "Are you here to rescue me, or should I be preparing for round 2? A figure shimmered into existence outside the force field. Human, definitely, but wearing armor that seemed to exist in a constant state of flux between solid matter and something else entirely. "Lieutenant Marcus Webb, Terran Special Operations. Your mother sends her regards. How is dear old Mom? Currently accepting the surrender of a Galactic Council task force. Apparently, they decided negotiation was preferable to extinction." The force field deactivated with a soft chime. "About time," Maya said, standing and stretching. "I was starting to worry you'd all gone soft since I left." "Hardly. Though I have to say, your performance in the arena was impressive. Very old school. Sometimes the classics work best." Maya stepped out of the cell and looked around the corridor. "So, what's the plan? Dramatic escape? Running gun battle through the corridors? Or are we go with a more subtle approach?" Lieutenant Webb's grin was visible through his helmet's faceplate. "Actually, we were thinking more along the lines of a formal diplomatic exchange. Your arena performance has convinced several species that humans might be worth talking to rather than fighting. Boring. Well, there is one more thing. Oh, Command wants to know if you'd be interested in a new assignment. Something involving the systematic evaluation of Galactic Council military capabilities. From the inside, Maya's smile could have powered a small starship. "Now you're talking my language." As they walked through corridors filled with the aftermath of very one-sided combat, Maya couldn't help but feel satisfied. The aliens had wanted to test human capabilities, and in a way, they had gotten exactly what they asked for. They just hadn't expected the test to work both ways. Behind them, in the arena where it had all started, the Krex'thor's body was already beginning to decompose. It had been a magnificent predator, perfectly adapted for its role as an apex killer. But predators, Maya reflected, were only dangerous until they met something higher up the food chain. And humans, it turned out, had a very different definition of what constituted the top.